everybody, and welcome to another edition of 4.0 and Below, where we love our creases to absolute pieces. And today's episode, we're going to dive into the archives again and give you a full run on, serendipitously, the movie's coming out tomorrow, Captain Marvel, a full run of Miss Marvel. Of course, Carol Danvers first appeared in the old Captain Marvel comics until she got caught in this magnetron blast and kind of merged her powers with his powers with her, and she sort of became a new hero. Now, this launched in I think '77, written by Jerry Conway and drawn by Big John Buscema to start with. And the character was a little strange. I remember when she first started because it was sort of a Jekyll and Hyde thing, where Carol, when she would turn into Miss Marvel, Carol would have absolutely no recollection of what she had done in the persona as Miss Marvel, which I thought was kind of strange. There's number 2, and number 3, and that was sort of the modus operandi there until I think Chris Claremont took over in issue number 3 or number 4, and he kind of helped clean up that mess a little bit. And I said, I've always liked the character. I really have. It's one of these characters I like Carol because she always seems to get shit on, and she gets shit on a lot. Both in the comics and by the writers, and she's just never really found a certain voice or a voice for it, and we'll address that here a little bit more as we dig into this. Going on to issue number 5, Day of the Doom Wagon, guest starring the Vision. Ooh, what do I do with these? Okay, I'll put those there then. Okay, and going on to number 6. All-out action and adventure. Has the female Fury finally met her match? Maybe? Oh, and here comes MODOK. In number 7. The same fates as Death. And issue number 8. And issue number 9. And issue 10. Yeah, Murder, Menace, and MODOK. It's always a good day when MODOK gets punched in the face. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. I just always liked Carol, Miss Marvel. He said she's kind of a tank, a flying tank. And let's see. On to issue 11. The Elementals. I don't know if those are the same Elementals that are going to show up in the new Spider-Man movie. I don't know. I can't remember. And issue number 12. Oops. Like I said, yeah, Chris Claremont took over writing on this, and I know Jim Mooney did a lot of the pencils, and also, excuse me, Sal Buscema came in and kind of took over for a good chunk of it, too. 13. Bedlam in Boston. And then 14. Fear stalks the 40th floor. Steeplejack. Oh, wow. I remember that dude. Did the Scourge get him? Was that one of the Scourge victims? I can't remember. And let's see. Number 15. The shark is a very deadly beast. Okay. And we're on to issue 16. War Beneath the Waves. Now this one, I think this is the first appearance of Raven Darkholme, who for some reason has a hard-on for Miss Marvel. I think that's sort of a brief cameo. I think this is the first full appearance of Raven Darkholme. I think, and then this is the first appearance of Mystique. I don't think she was called Mystique quite yet, and that'll probably cost you a pretty penny if you want to get a hold of it. But just fair warning: the full first appearance of Mystique is like one tiny itty bitty panel, and that's it. Okay, and moving on to number 19. And then to number 20. New costume. I think the new artist was Dave Cockrum. I think Dave Cockrum designed the new costume there too. I always kind of dug it. Oh yeah, fighting the lizards. I remember. Issue 21. Like I said, sales weren't so great. I think it started out as a monthly, but I think toward the end it switched to a bi-monthly. 22. She's fighting Deathbird again. And number 3, messing with the Guardians there a little bit. There's old Vance Astrovic. And that would be the last issue of Miss Marvel. The character didn't disappear completely, though. She'd start popping up in some other things. I know she's in a couple Marvel team-ups. In the old costume. And then again in the new costume. And then I think she showed up in a couple issues of the Defenders. But then she really found her spot after her series bit the dust with the Avengers. And she survived the big roster shakeup and joined the team. And was with them for about 20 issues until, of course, the infamous, starting with 197, Miss Marvel's Shocking Surprise. Of course, we all know that Miss Marvel's Shocking Surprise is that she was pregnant for some untold reason. And that leads us, of course, to issue 200. Now, I'm sure most of you probably know the whole Marcus saga. If you don't, long and short of it, basically, Carol got cosmic roofied by the son of Immortus, and it was this weird thing where he had to get her pregnant with himself so he could exist in this dimension. I don't remember. It's so stupid. If I told you all what happened, you probably wouldn't believe it. But anyway, but the worst of it was the rest of the Avengers kind of threw her under the bus a little bit. And this story has gotten a lot of grief, and rightfully so, because it is pretty awful. And of course, everyone involved is in the blame game, from creative to editorial, about whose idea this really was. And it is pretty, like I said, it was pretty bad. And then, of course, Carol goes off with Marcus because she's still under the influence. But she was able to get back. But then, and then Claremont came back in and sort of took the Avengers to task for what happened in that issue and what Carol went through from her point of view. And then made them feel rightfully very bad. And then after that, Carol kind of stuck with the X-Men for a while, and went on a few adventures with them. And then, of course, there's a really good story where they're out in outer space with the Shi'ar, and the Brood get a hold of her, and after some experimenting, her powers get a massive upgrade and turns into binary. And I know she joined the Starjammers for a while. And then I think it was during Operation Galactic Storm where she kind of burned her powers out. And then so she was kind of back to regular old Miss Marvel again. And I know during the the hero's return phase. She was back in the Avengers, but she was having a lot of personal problems, and was hitting the booze a little hard. And I guess I can't blame her. She's got some PTSD for a lot of things. And as a former raging idiot binge drinker, yeah, I can totally empathize with this. And so she had some problems adjusting, but eventually she kind of got her crap together. And yeah, and she was on the Avengers for a long time, and then spun off into her own solo series again, which I actually thought was pretty good. I know, like the first couple years, I really enjoyed it, but then, like with everything else, it gets derailed by all these crossovers and whatever have you, and then like I said, not to repeat myself again, like I said, I've always loved this character, but I kind of love this character more in the team books. I don't know what it is, but I keep reading it. You know, her solo adventures, as she finally took on the moniker of Captain Marvel, which was in a really funny story, where her and Captain America were fighting the Absorbing Man, and it was the great line that technically as a colonel she outranks him, and I just thought that was hysterical. But her solo stuff, it can't find a consistent voice, and most of them, it's like at best they're mediocre, and some of them it's just outright crummy, and which is too bad because I think the character deserves better. And then of course now they've redone her origin again. Not terrible storytelling by any stretch. I'm not necessarily sure I agree with the change in her origin. I won't spoil it in case anybody hasn't read it yet, and I don't know how well or how much it's going to tie in with the movie that's coming out. But yeah, like I said, yeah, if you really want to get to know Carol, the Carol that I love, stick to the team books. The Avengers, the Ultimates. I know she was in the Guardians of the Galaxy for a while. One of my absolute favorite Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel's books or stories was in Guardians of the Galaxy Annual #1. It's pretty great. She's out in deep space, and they come across the helicarrier chock full of life model decoys because they're all out fighting Skrulls. And her and the Guardians join the fight, and it's just great. Excellent art by Frank Cho. It's hysterical. Read it if you get a chance. So, which brings us to my mini rant of this episode. Okay, hang on. I gotta get my stuff together here. Let's get this back. Of course, we all know, like we talked about before here a little bit ago, that Chris Claremont took the Avengers to task for what they did to Carol back in issue 200 with the whole Marcus fiasco. And again, Marcus and that whole storyline gets a lot of grief for the content and the cosmic rape and all that stuff. And again, it's terrible, it's awful, and it deserves all the flack. But in that very same issue, of course, this is the same issue where Rogue attacks Carol just as she escaped from Marcus, and essentially stole her mind and her powers and put her in a coma. And of course, a lot of people know Rogue or were introduced to Rogue through the X-Men cartoon, and I like that character well enough, but I don't love that character, and it always soured me a little bit because I knew her origin. Because again, a lot of people don't remember, when she was first introduced, what a psychopathic serial mind rapist she was. And of course, with everyone else, it was only temporary, but with Carol, it was permanent. It was a permanent shift of her memories and a permanent shift of her powers. Xavier was able to get most of her memories back, but she's detached from them. There's no connections to them. So it's kind of like watching a TV movie of your life, but you're not really invested in it because you're not feeling anything, which I think is kind of shitty. And then, of course, he doubles down, Claremont did, when Rogue winds up joining the X-Men in 171. And, of course, at the time, well, Carol had turned into binary by then, and she was kind of in space. She came back, and this book contains one of my favorite panels of all time when Carol punches Rogue into the orbit, and she should have hit her again. And again, one of the worst things about this is, and it's always rubbed me wrong, is especially in that cartoon, how they've sort of twisted this around and try to like remove all blame from Rogue on everything and sort of putting it all on Mystique and making Rogue the injured party of this whole situation and a victim. And that does not and has never sat right with me. And as horrible as the Marcus story was, I think this one is almost as bad, if not a little worse, because it's like rape of the body versus rape of the mind and soul. And, it took Carol a long damn time to recover from that. And like I said, it always kind of made me sick. And I know there's a couple episodes of that cartoon where, Rogue's dealing with Miss Marvel's psyche that's stuck in her brain. And it kind of makes you wonder sometime why Rogue went good. Is that Carol's influence? And Xavier got himself a good little foot soldier? I don't know. But I think it's a question that needs to be asked. In later issues, when her and Wolverine get trapped in Genosha, Rogue basically checks out and lets Carol take over to help them escape and get out. And then, of course, there's a later issue where somehow they're able, I think through the Siege Perilous, if I'm remembering this right, where basically they were able to finally separate Miss Marvel from Rogue. And, of course, in this situation, Miss Marvel is the bad guy. And, again, none of that ever sat right with me. And, it's come to my attention, too, a little bit, and it really hacks my hackles. There are certain segments out there, now that the Fox deal has gone through and Marvel's taken over, and so there's probably going to be some X-Men movies, and hopefully maybe a Fantastic Four movie, too. And all they see, this Captain Marvel movie, all they see is a means to an end to get Rogue a power-up. And again, it's like, are you kidding? And it's like, no wonder Carol's always so grumpy. And I know at some point Carol and Rogue made peace over this whole incident. And if someone could comment down below where exactly that happened, I would love to read it, because I've never read it. And I said I would love to find out, exactly what was said. And I'm glad they buried the hatchet. And, Rogue has become a great character and has made up for what she's done 1,000,000 times over. But that still does not excuse the fact of what she did. And again, this burns my britches a little bit how Marvel has been over backwards to spin that around and make her the victim of this whole thing. And or maybe I'm reading too much of it. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. But I'm looking forward to the movie. Like I says, I love Carol, and looking forward to it. And hopefully they get their act together in the comic books a little bit. And I don't know. Just get somebody. And they keep starting over. But again, I think that's a lot of number ones, I know, but Jesus Christ, everybody's got a lot of number ones lately, because apparently they don't seem to know what they're doing anymore. And but I guess if all else fails, we still got our old comics to read. And there you go. So again, I'm looking forward to the movie, and that's our Miss Marvel lecture for today. And So this is WB Kelso for this kind of dour and depressing episode of 4.0 and below. But hey, let's turn it into a celebration. Let's go watch the movie. Let's have some fun. And remember, Captain Marvel kicks some ass. And to never, ever, ever be embarrassed about what you can afford comic book wise. And until next time, we'll catch you later. Bye-bye.